Hey everyone, this is Zola and I'm back for another tutorial for MotionWorks as part of the A to Z plugins, and I've somehow managed to blag my way into getting another tutorial, which is great. You know, I had to call in some favours with the big guys, but here I am back for a second one, and straight away I'm going to just crack right into this because we've got a lot to get through in this short amount of time. I made a new solid with Command or Control Y. Dragged the CCBubbles plugin over here, which is the one we're covering today, and as you can see straight away the colour of the bubbles is directly relevant to whatever colour your solid is when you make it, so just so you know, and that is why you don't have a colour kind of picker up here, which is kind of common for the plugin, any kind of particle plugin, which this kind of is really. I'm going to shoot through these because very self-explanatory. Bubble amount, how many bubbles you have on the screen, bubble speed, how fast they go up, or indeed down, if we pull this into the negatives. Wobble amplitude is how much these things will wobble from side to side. Yep, I'm getting dizzy already. And frequency is how much or how fast they'll do it, at which point here we're going to be getting really crazy, so I suggest you keep those two low. And bubble size is actually the most important. You wouldn't think it is, but it is the most important part of this whole plugin really. Reflection type I'm going to skirt over because we don't have very long and it does very little, as you can see. Shading type is last but most important. You can start with flat circles, which is none. Lighten creates white to whatever colour you have in the middle as your bubble, and darken does the opposite, so we have black to whatever colour we have in the middle. Fade outwards, which is what you have by default, and like you saw before, these are all transparent in the middle, and if I leave that on, you can see that fade outwards does the opposite, so we have opaque in the middle and transparent on the outside. So I'm going to change that to fade inwards, and yeah, that's basically it. I mean, you might think, why would I want to use bubbles ahead of something perhaps like the foam plugin, which I'm sure someone will cover in very great detail at some point. Oop, I'm doing this wrong here. But there's a quick scene I set up, and as you can see here, they can have reflections. These things are scaling up as they appear, they're wobbling. You know, they've got all the party tricks that Bubbles just doesn't. So why would you want to use this plugin? Well, let's have a look at some examples of things you can make with it. This kind of embryo-like scene is constituted purely from the Bubbles plugin. At the base I have very big bubble size and obviously kind of pinkish, and I've used a lighten mode, shading type, to create this, and I kind of like having massive bubbles as a base, but the crux of this, and for any kind of cool bubbles like effect, I think, is duplication and then shifting the bubble size. So what I've done here is I've taken this bottom layer, which is the lighten mode, I've duplicated it, switched it to darken, but then just made the bubble size smaller. And what this is doing is making sure that the inner bubble is actually perfectly centered with all the others, which is why you can see every bubble perfectly centered, and that is the key to this whole effect for me. And I've set these two to overlay, and you can have lots of fun with the blending modes. I'm not even gonna skirt over that, but you know, straight away there you've got a kind of dreamy look. I've kind of done something similar here. Once again, this is built in exactly the same way. I have this is just color correction adjustment layer, and underneath it we have a glow, which I've set to vertical here. Once again, an adjustment layer just to create this kind of dreamy like streaks. And underneath, as you can see here, I literally just duplicated my last scene, so we have all the same solids, but I just changed this top one to difference, first of all the blending modes, as you can see, and drop the opacity a bit, change this darken. This one underneath, if I solo this out, has very soft ones, and I've added a blur and a glow to that. And this is, you know, we're creating kind of colours melding together, and it looks very dreamy, and I think that looks kind of cool myself. This was a surprise to me. I was actually once again, just messing around with this plugin, and if I play this very shortly, you can see you have this really cool psychedelic kind of Aztec-like look to these bubbles. So how have I done this? Well, long story short, if I create a new composition, create bubbles, make a new solid, create bubbles, and I'm going to set this to darken. So we have these bubbles, and I've literally just duplicated the layer, grab the one underneath, Command Shift Y or Command Control Y, literally just move the hue slider, so just so that the next color is noticeable, and then just literally cranked up the bubble size, and then once again done it again, take the hue down, crank up the bubble size, and you can see straight away how I've basically just repeated that over and over here. And on the top one I've set it to lighten, and you know, on the overlay blend mode, and for the bottom one I believe lighten as well, but all the others in between are just all darkens with incremental scaling on the bubble size. So as you can see, that's a really cool effect, and one you might not have instantly thought of when you start using the bubble plugin. This last one, not to encroach too much on another plugin which I'm very fond of, Colorama, but once again we have just hide Colorama here. I've added a blur because Colorama actually adds a bit of artifacting, so I just softened it a bit. But once again, we just have a very simple bubbles plugin, but by setting Colorama and you set the phase to alpha, so this is now using the alpha information from opaque to transparent from back to front, and I use the just a preset here, Caribbean, depending on how you want to pronounce that. Cycle repetitions is just slowly being keyframed from 0 to whatever, 3, 4, and this is why these kind of little streaks are starting slow and then just kind of ramping and moving in slowly and becoming more and more apparent. And last but not least is by default this will have modify alpha ticked, and as you can see that's a different effect altogether. But I unticked it, and this will create this kind of warping effect just when the bubbles are kind of running over each other, really. And by adding a glow adjustment over it, you can get some really interesting effects, I think. So definitely there's a lot more than meets the eye to the bubbles plugin. I think it's just a case of messing around with them. So I hope you've enjoyed this run through. It's been a bit longer than the others, but hopefully showing you some things you can do with it. Last but not least, I'm going to give myself a quick plug again. Zolamedia.com. All my tutorials are on here. This site is almost done now. I actually had it crashed due to the traffic which I got after the first tutorial, so thank you for that. On Twitter I'm Zola85. I'm always tweeting any cool videos I see or songs. I'm quite into music, and also the digital graphics and stuff like that, so follow me on there if you're on there. And last but not least, I have all my tutorials in one place on my vimeo.com/Zola, and I also have a bit of recent work on there, but not too much because most of the work I do is actually owned by my company. So thanks for watching, and hopefully you'll have some fun with the Bubbles plugin.